It was a cold midsummer's night, and the shattered windows of a Section 8 apartment in the bad part of town blew in the chilling winds from outside. There, laying across the floor along a pile of butter wrappers and empty containers of margarine, was a very fat and sad little man. His products stolen, his tummy devoid of treats, his buttery body a mere husk now. Everything was going well that day. He had just signed on another month to HBO Max, Disney+, Netflix, Hulu, and Black.com. His shipment of about 30 more Stadias had finally arrived in the mail after a long shortage of chips from the chink factories that built his soulless products. Best of all, his 15th Uber Eats delivery was almost at the entrance of his shitty little flat. Not to mention he had just dummied himself up on 40 grams of weed, meaning that his brain was high on copium. Despite the debt, everything was going to be fine, he thought. The doorbell rang and he crept to his doorway, hoping to quickly grab the greasy goods that awaited him, being careful not to let the sunlight burn his sensitive pale skin. Suddenly, the door flew open, and along came the band of Spurg lords to harass the butter vapor. Squilliam was the first to come in, and he quickly trampled all over the precious bag of Big Macs and Baconators that the butter hoarder was so hoping to nosh on. He barely had time to sulk over the flattened food when the rape lion hurriedly took as much of the superhero merchandise and video games that he could. The margarine mongrel could only bear to witness the horror as his collection of Funko Pops were ransacked by this heathen.
Yeah, whatever. Try harder, Spurg,
he coped. Next, Uncle Heroin came into room, taking a toke off his bong and puffed it in the butter soy's face, blinding him with the smoke. Heroin then grabbed the butter ogre by the ear and hollered down as loudly as possible, irritating his weak eardrums, crippling the poor mongoloid. Uncle Heroin then proceeded to bully the butterball by yelling,
"I am in your walls,
and
you're in a pattern,"
repeatedly while painting visages of Morgana and Rivet's assholes before leaving in a bellowing laughter.
Do you have an actual point?
He yammered at the fleeting Kiwi. Soon after, 𝕱𝖌𝖎𝖌𝖎 came in the room to relieve himself. He had just finished his daily consumption of the JMAA Choco Taco and was ready to repeat the cycle of the shit phoenix.
Dude, I'm gonna shit all over the walls!
He spread his ass cheeks wide and let out the greatest dump of his life. A stream of liquid ass sprayed from his prolapsed anus, and covered the walls with his smelly brown goop. Everything was drenched in the poop, even his coveted Stadia collection.
No, not my precious Stadia!
After the torrent of JMAA's feces had finally calmed down, Mark Hamill came in with the Butter's slampig ex-girlfriend, Pristine Amethyst.
What are you doing here, honey?
He pathetically whimpered. She said nothing to him as Mark lifted her shirt off, and fondled her mediocre chicken breast milkers in front of him.
If you keep doing that, I'll get empty to ban you from the server!
He ignored the buttercucks seething as he gave her rancid nipples a couple good licks and squeezed them to shoot the hole's titty milk into the butter smoker's eyes. Satisfied, Mark closed him to move on to her loose roast beef-looking cooch. This was the one thing the butter bitch feared the most. He could never get inside that 4 out of 10 granny gooch no matter how hard he tried. His butter pad was simply too small and his gunt was too big, so every time he tried to fuck his land whale girlfriend, he ended up reeling back and would beat off using 2 fingers like a pair of tweezers instead. Mark then revealed his 13-inch long, and slapped Pristine Amethyst's now exposed hang-kill ass with his meat. Said the butter goon, reacting to the impressive size of Specious cock. He spread her ass cheeks wide, exposing the unwashed asshole that stared them right in the face. Mark shoved her brown eye over to the buttercuck's nose, now seething and welching.
Kill yourself. No, really, do us a favor and kill yourself!
He said to Mark, before being forced to lick that poopy butthole. He cried even harder as he was made to endure the stink of that unwashed anus.
To be fair, that didn't taste that bad,
he said after cleaning it good with his yeast-encrusted tongue. Mark went along and proceeded to plow the hand planet for several hours. He wasn't even finished when the immobilization of the buttersucker had worn off, and he was now just watching the two of them do it right in his room, the same room where he would stream and make really low-effort content for 300 viewers per video. To him it was enough to make $12 a video, even one would suffice for his greedy paws. Anything to keep him from sustaining a real job and not just playing Call of Duty all day. In the meantime, the Master of Plague approached the windows of the backwater home of the butter, and painted about a dozen stars of David on the glass before running off and screaming,
"You are a kite!"
as loud as he could manage. Mark had finally finished up with the whore and left without saying a word to either. Pristine Amethyst soon followed, but not before telling the buttermensch that getting blacked was the best thing to ever happen to her.
You know what? That's fair.
He timidly stammered to his ex. He thought it was finally over. All of the trolls and spurglords had finally left, and he would have been happy to consume more to take his mind off the pain. He would show up to the empty hero stream the next day and pretend that nothing ever happened, that he was not humiliated, ransacked, and cucked in a single night. This would have been content for him. Then, from the entry of the flat, in came a very handsome and tall figure. A 6'7" black man who resembled Donovan from Berserk. It was Jaydens Bacon's, the greatest nigger that ever lived. He approached the mortal of margarine, and caressed his enormous thighs while whispering in his ear.
It's okay, Fuzzell, I'm here now. You don't gotta worry about those guys anymore, buddy.
His heart sank as Jaydens pulled his pants down, revealing the absolute elephant trunk of his uncut and unwashed BBC.
The butter has finally melted.